You're listening to the iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 978. My name is Connor Kilpatrick. With me, as always, is Josh Flanagan.
As always. Not
Always
sometimes, which is not literally true, but I'm with you. When you do it without me, you're still hearing me, like I'm in there.
You're the voice in my head.
Yeah.
I can't escape. That's all right.
I have that same voice in my head, and I don't like it.
Welcome to iFanboy 2025. It's our 20th year of doing this show and our 20th year of doing iFanboy, and that means for 25 years, one of us has picked up what they like the best from their stack of comics. We call that book the Pick of the Week. We come on this show, we talk about that book, we talk about other books in the week. There's some existential angst always peppered in there. It's always the subtext of whatever we're talking about. There's a patron pick. There's listener mail. It's going to be fun. We enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Here's your spoiler warning. Exercise some caution. Josh, you had the pick.
Yes, I did. Excuse me.
Are you
okay.
dying?
There was something there right when I don't think that's ever
worst possible moment.
I know at this point in the show, I should have been talking more. This is why I do it. So I'm ready. So I'm warmed up. Okay. Fantastic Four number 725 or number 32. Yeah, we're broken records, but here's the deal. I have been catching up on the week of comics from the week that I was away. I did not read them while I was gone, and I was most of the way through them, and then I realized, oh, there's Fantastic Four this week, so I had to read that one. And I read it before I read any of the Marvel books by some time, so that by the time I got sort of this Fantastic Four last, because I didn't want to mix up the two issues and think make the experience different as it was. However, what I found was that when I got to this one 2 hours later, I was like, wait, what just happened? Where are we? Because it continued the story that had been going on in the previous issue, but in a completely different setting. Basically, previously, Ben Grimm is trying to get his powers back, and he screws up time. And so we are now thrust into this alternate reality where Valeria's mind has been put into the daughter of Mary Richards, who are this world's powerless Reed and Sue Richards' daughter.
No, Mary is the daughter. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So that's her.
I followed what you said. Yes, Mary Richards.
Yes. It was difficult. This is what happens when you have these time travel alternate universe stories. When you try to explain them, you sound ridiculous. And I just like the last one, I thought, God, this is smart, which is not like an unusual thing to say about a Ryan North story, but like within the same arc to have now a completely different alternate universe story that then spun off into a larger story that I didn't. It was the Twilight Zone episode where
with
the
Bill
little
Mumy.
boy,
Billy Mumy.
Yeah, Bill Mumy is the
It's a
kid.
Good Life.
It's a Good Life. That's it. I knew it, but you knew it sooner. It's basically that where Franklin Richards, grows up with the amount of power that he has, but in a completely different scenario, and and takes over the body of Galactus
because he just decides to be.
Yeah, Galactus. Either way.
Yeah.
So but basically the idea is she wakes up and she's in this world and she's like, okay, this is an alternate universe, and this looks just like our world, but she realizes too, like, this shouldn't be here because the Fantastic Four have saved the world so many times. So what happened? There's your first mystery, and you get to the fact that the only person with the power, there was like a little alternate universe trickery that allowed Franklin Richards to keep his power, like I don't remember exactly what it was.
Well, they were put in a bubble by Sue, and then so when the time wave hit them, it was different than when it hit everybody else, and so she kept her smart. She just was in a different body. She kept her brain.
But there was something about like transporting his embryo. I don't know what it is. It doesn't.
It's really funny because I read the Tom Brevoort Substack every Sunday where he answers questions from his readers, and either last week or the week before, somebody said like, as you know, Fantastic Four is written more for kids, and I was like, are you kidding me? The heady scientific concepts of this book would be terrible for kids.
Yeah, or for really fun. I mean, like, I think it's right where it needs to be in terms of that. But so it's really like a nature nurture thing that happens here with Franklin Richards, who has this infinite power, wasn't brought up with people who understood it, and slowly sort of he has all this power, but he never learned how to deal with it and never had to grow up as a result of it. So everything is controlled by who went essentially like a little kid, a 6-year-old, or something. And if he doesn't like something, then he just changes it because he has the power to do that. It's not, because it's not rocket science. I keep being amazed by the different but very ambitious, intelligent, and developed stories that we are doing from a science basis. Like in this time, it's time travel, alternate universes, string theory, whatever. But in this, it's actually like a really human story because, like, if I as a parent, like I read it and be like, this is what happens if you screw up. Like you give them too much. Like there's a little just sort of human element in the middle of this. Let's see. The developing brain was insufficient to sustain my brother's memories, but his consciousness in itself. But it did somehow take his powers and put them into the
Basically,
embryo
the
inside his
embryo, the
mother.
fetus, when she's
Yeah.
pregnant. I thought this was really fun and head spinny, and I really
Yeah.
liked when Jean Grey showed up and she's married to Namor, a very cool version of Namor. I was like, I like this guy more than the regular one. And they're sort of leading the resistance to Franklin, who wears Galactus's costume now after having killed Galactus as a baby.
With an F.
Well, he's still into the branding.
Sure.
And the big cliffhanger here is that Valeria figures out a way to stop him, but then whispers 4 words in his ear, which defeats him and causes him to disintegrate.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know what those 4 words are yet, but the title of the next it says next
I thought
month.
It was You'll Die Too.
We don't know. It said the 4 words.
Right. Okay.
We didn't hear them. Right? I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I thought you're right.
He says you'll die too, but we don't know what
I
she
took
says.
that as maybe that, but I don't know. I'm guessing you're right. Either way, the sort of solution that they came up with was, basically there's a red herring of a solution. And like Franklin can read everybody's minds, and so they know that the second he shows up, you have a second before everybody's just gone or disappeared or their minds are wiped or whatever it was. And like the plan was, everybody has to think about what the original plan was all the time. So that's the first thing he gets. And then this other thing will happen in I think she says a decisecond before, it happens. They get stuck in time. And then there's what I think is a really nice, sad, tragic scene. There's 3 pages of it, where
she had whispered, they send it off. They send the 4 words at the right place at the right time in the right mind, prevents everything from happening. And so we don't know what those 4 words are yet or where they went. That's the next issue.
But I just like a lot of ground was covered in the issue. It's just more of the stuff that has made this book great. But every time it's a different flavor, and I cannot get over how impressive that is. But because it's like, oh, you continually make Fantastic Four the pick of the week. It's like there are different stories every time, which only makes it better in comparison to what has come before. It's like a lot of times. You remember this forever ago when we used to Gotham Central used to be pick of the week all the time, and they got hard because
we had to write about it.
Well, right, but it's just be like, why is it good? It's good for the same reason it was before, and this is good for the same reason before. But the stories are different every time, and the
foundational reason is different, but the outcome is the foundational reason is the same. The outcome is different. It's. I mean, the Fantastic Four should. There's all kinds of shoulds for the Fantastic Four, and there's been lots of great runs. We love the Dan Slott run. The Jonathan Hickman run was fun for me. But if there's any book in Marvel that's going to be outrageously scientific and use these big heady concepts and tell crazy stories where Franklin Richards is wearing Galactus's outfit and it's the Bill Mumy of Marvel, like it should be in this book, and it all makes sense and works, and it should involve alternate timelines and aliens and all the things that Ryan North has put into his relativity and everything that he's explored.
But I don't think there's many writers who could do this. I've never seen this. I have never seen such a font of scientific, clever, well thought out short stories, one after another. I've never seen it.
I guess you go back to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Those were all single stories.
But I'm also sure that these are probably more complex.
Sure.
So, I mean, the more I think it was more like this guy's a savant. Like I don't know. There's no one else in comics that I can think of who could do this for this long. You know, the closest I can think of, and this is not when Paul Dini did Detective Comics forever ago, every issue was a different mystery. So within that genre and that thing, he was kind of doing that. He was telling a lot of short stories within a genre, but this is like much more advanced math as far as I'm concerned.
It's really fun.
Yeah,
and this is
super fun. And if it wasn't fun and interesting, all the ideas wouldn't matter.
Right, and this has the One World Under Doom banner on it. It's technically a tie-in only because Doom took away Ben's powers, but this has nothing to do with the One World Under Doom story. This is them off.
Which Ryan North is also writing.
Right, and it's fine. It's just that he sent the Fantastic Four off on a different trajectory when he took away Ben's powers, and then had Ben quite selfishly try to get them back, and thus that was the previous issue, screwed the team over, and this is the fallout of that. So it's not quite a single story, although it's its own single one-shot story within a grander arc of Ben's powers.
They also added that double jeopardy of, oh no, Ben's lost his powers. By the way, they're all gonna like that was new. They're all gonna lose their powers also. It's like Jesus,
because they're tied together. Yeah, it's just right. It's Captain America under Brubaker. It's Gotham Central. It's Powers in the early days. Like it's like how do you keep finding new ways to exalt this book because it's worthy of it, and it's.
But the one thing that's easier about it though is that every it's like raise the bar. It's crazy. If you are if you never listened to the conversation, the Talksplode that I did with Ryan North a few years ago, sort of not long after I think he took over this book, I think I asked something at one. I was like, do you ever worry about you coming all these stories? And he was just like, nah, I always think of more. And he, how there's like confidence that is like it's showy. It's like, well, you're gonna say that for whatever. And I was like, oh my God, he believes it and he's right.
He's right so far.
But it's true. Like he had none of that like writer self-confidence. Like he was just like, no, I can do this. I'm good at this.
And, there's a lot of writers like that, and he's continuing on as they're going to reboot the book again in #1, and he's still on the book.
Yeah, so they should hold on to him for grim death. Like
this was great. This was the last book I read, which means because I read the Marvel books last because of the way we get them, and of the Marvel books, this was the one I was most anticipating. So this was it did not disappoint.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I'm like, that's another. I did start to get used to like another Fantastic Four book. They're usually pretty good or whatever, and then every once in a while they just blow you away. And this was a blow you away one. Just like when Reed stretched himself out so thin so the vampires couldn't get to him. I was like, never seen that. That's different genre. So that's a pick of the week. There's no excuses. When I looked at the big list of books, good books, I just went, that's the one. There wasn't a second place.
So we just mentioned Dan Slott, which I totally forgot he was doing. Superman Unlimited. Superman Unlimited #1 came out this week. Art by Raphael Albuquerque, who drew last week's. What did he draw last week? The Huck book. So he's doing 2 books right now. So Slott, Albuquerque, Marcelo Maiello, Dave Sharp doing. I'm not quite sure what this book is yet. This was very introductory.
Well, so
for the status quo, but I'm not sure what Superman Unlimited means. Go ahead.
So for the first bit, there's a little like cold open where there's a meteor in space and it's kind of scary. But the sort of first chunk of the book is basically telling you the origin again. And there was a little part of me that was like, I don't need to know this origin story again. I was like, why? And then I was like, oh, there's a movie coming out, so that's why it's doing it this way.
Sure.
And but still, I feel like I've read the origin story a million times and like 10 times recently. I definitely feel like there's been a little too much of it. But I think that when we come back to the story that's going on in the present, all of a sudden it became something interesting. And I thought there was a really good sort of final page turn. Basically, the Kryptonians lost their powers, and I don't really know what happened to Superman. He's golden because a mountain of kryptonite fell on him. It's very Silver Agey in concept. Like
there was a meteor coming, and he broke the sort of covering of it, and
they made up a fake metal on the outside, so they thought it was made of this stuff that is notoriously invisible to radar. And then he breaks through that part, and he finds out this is just a giant solid chunk of kryptonite, which is Krypton. And he's like, there's just a line in here somewhere that's just like, no matter what I do, Krypton keeps coming at me or coming
Mhm.
for me. And I was like, that's a really good way to look at it, because the thing that always kills him is the thing that he escaped from. Or,
What this issue did really well, I thought, was give Dan Slott's overview of Superman.
Mm,
So we get basically every facet of his life in here. And is this oversized? Yeah, it's a little oversized. So
yes.
like we get the Daily Planet, we get Lois Lane, we get his parents, we get his son, we get Justice League, we get Batman, Crypto. Like and we get a journey through his history. You know, we
Mhm.
see him coming down to the scene, and then proposing to Lois and Doomsday and his death, and the four Superman, and then coming back the marriage. We sort of get this overview. So it's like this is Dan Slott saying, "I get it. I get Superman. Here's my
And
take on him."
and in that sense, as I was reading this, I didn't think this Superman's different. I really thought it fit into the Superman that
Yeah,
they've been doing for a while, and I mean that in a good way.
yeah,
Um, I do want to bring up there's a scene where he's pushing on the asteroid,
hmm,
and he's like kind of accepted this is gonna kill me. Like
yeah,
there's no way around it. And he's like, this hurts. He does the thing. I've read a lot of Superman, but I think there's something in one of these issues where they're like, oh, you have it easy. Um, but he does the hard thing, and he says just out loud, John, wherever you are, I hope you can hear me. And I love you and your mom so much and your grandparents are whatever. And I was like, oh, I guess John can hear him somewhere, and that's the bit, and you kind of forget
hmm.
about it. And then at the end, John's like, I heard you. And I was like, oh, that was really like that was very touching, I thought.
And they used the line from the movie, which was a good line. They can be good people if you let them.
Mhm.
Or he doesn't get to finish it. That's the presumption of the finish line. But
Is
I
that
thought this
from
was a
78? Is that from the motion picture? No.
yeah, that was Brando. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
they used it in the trailer for Man of Steel,
Okay, that's why I've
but it was Brando saying Krypton. Um, Brando saying Krypton like John Huston saying Mr. Giddies, or Mr. Gitz. So I thought this was good. This is a good start. Like I said, we don't know what any of this means yet. This is really just
yeah.
setting up Dan Slott's view of the world. But what does this golden kryptonite or golden Superman mean? How did he survive having a mountain of kryptonite fall on him? But I'm excited for it. I am. I think Dan Slott's a great choice for Superman. He has that. He has
Yeah.
that sensibility that's very similar to Fantastic Four, very similar to stuff he's done before.
And
So
it's also just a love and respect for comics of before
sure,
as applied to comics now. He's got, I mean, Superman getting smashed and being gold and affected by Krypton. That's as Silver Age comic as you can get, Silver Age Superman as you can get. Like that was constantly some kind of kryptonite that was changing everything.
right,
Um,
good
so
stuff.
yeah,
I enjoyed it. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back for my pick of the week. All
fancy.
right. Batman Superman World's Finest 39. Mark Waid, Clayton Henry. This is part of the We Are Yesterday crossover, the part four. This is the one that takes place mostly in the past. And as we remember, the cliffhanger was that in the past, Dick Grayson as Robin got shot with a time gun and got zapped to the present on the watchtower. And everyone was like, woo! And so this is the fallout of that. And I loved every fucking moment of this comic. First of all, super happy Clayton Henry drew it. It was what's his name in the last issue, who's totally fine. But I really like Clayton Henry for this kind of story. Um, and it's like time travel gobbledygook, and you can't think about any of it for very long. But
Yeah.
it's not about that. It's about the moments. It's time travel stuff. So last week, was it last week, the email about continuity
Mhm.
and how it was mostly a benefit. This is where it's a benefit, right? Like this is where you get to trade on all the moments of continuity with time travel. And
Mhm.
so, you know, like Batman's like, "Oh, Dick, you're back," and like you disappeared, and Nightwing's there. He's like, "I didn't disappear," and so like clearly it's all broken. But then you get the moments of they get zapped around, and young Superman, who's not yet married to Lois, and let alone she doesn't even know who he is. Young Batman and Dick Grayson get zapped to the present. They encounter Superwoman Lois, who's like, "Clark, get our son, get his boyfriend. We're going bring Bruce and Tim, and we're going to this thing." And they're all like, "What the fuck were those words she just said?" Like, and Clark's like, we have a son. She knows who I am. Like, it was just like that's what you look. That's the kind of that's what continuity pays off, right? You
Mhm.
want those moments where the young versions get a glimpse of the future, and they're all completely bewildered by it. And then, of course, there is the old versions getting zapped to the past. They basically swap spots, and they're in the Batcave, and Alfred shows up, and that's when Bruce and Dick are like gonna lose it because Alfred's been dead for 6 years.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really good.
Hey,
in that,
it's all right, big cat. It's all right.
in that Superman doesn't let
I liked that.
Batman hug him, and that may seem mean, but it's not, because he knows he'll break down, and the whole thing will be foiled. I just, it's gobbledygook, but I loved it. I loved everything.
You don't get to draw Batman in costume with those facial expressions very often, as he does on those 2 pages. That is, and it's excusable there.
Totally.
And
then there's stuff like Superman sees, he gets zapped with the fear gas, and then he sees his death from Doomsday, and Superman's like, hey, he made me think I died. Like, how dumb is this guy? Like, it's just like fun moments of like that. And
that was good.
They get zapped again at the end, and we don't know where they are. I just thought this was incredibly Mark Waid time gobbledygooky awesome.
Yeah.
And he's the guy to do this kind of comic. And Clayton Henry's the guy to draw it.
There's 2 kinds of time travel story.
Yeah.
There's a time travel story where, like, don't even think about it. Just it's okay. Shit's going wacky. And then there's the one where you have to understand it to know what's going on, and that's what makes sense. There's Looper or whatever. There's a Interstellar, something like that. This is not. This is the Back to the Future type. Don't think about it too hard. Just watch the interactions. That's the point of it.
This is Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah, put these people together and see what happens.
I don't like how prominent the stupid Batman with the spiked head gets on the cover when he's not really more than a glimpse in this one, but whatever.
You like Clayton Henry was really good for this, and he got to draw like all of these facial emotions that you don't like on Batman specifically, you just never see. But if you look at the face acting, man, it is fantastic. First page, when Robin's like surprised and backing up kind of, then there's the bit where Superman is telling Batman, hey, don't do that. But the face that Superman makes on the next page talking to Alfred, like that shit, like, hey, everything's cool, like it's over exaggerated a little bit, but it works great, and it's just great cartooning.
Well, if you think about the first page again, talking about stuff that you don't draw for Batman, like look at Batman's face there. That's pure joy on his face, which you never see. It's great, even if they gave him the wrong symbol on his chest, but that's fine. It's all fine.
Oh wow, look at that. That's movie symbol. That's 89 movie symbol.
Which is funny because they've been doing that on the young Batman. But then when they do young Batman, he's got the regular symbol. So they got their symbols crossed. So if you look in the past, when he's got the yellow oval, he's got the regular Batman symbol. On the cover that Dan Mora draws, that's how they've been giving young Batman's symbol, the movie symbol, for some reason. I don't know why they did that. But
they shouldn't do that.
They've been doing it the whole time.
That was something I didn't like in 1989. I was like, that's too many.
Why did they do that? Well, how did Warner Brothers allow that anyway?
I don't know. It's a perfect logo.
Not for this show. Great comic, though. I'm enjoying this crossover immensely, and I'm shocked this book is up to 39 issues. I thought it would be canceled after 12. Wonder Woman 821 This is the final issue of the 2-part Tom King, Guillaume March murder mystery in with the gods.
Olympus.
I'm always afraid I'm going to say the Roman one and the Greek one when it's all a problem. I love this. I love this little 2-parter. This is great. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, it was. I will tell you, I figured this one out in the beginning. I never do that. I'm not very good. But yeah, it was a really like take these characters out of the place that they are used to and completely change it, change the status of where Batman is. Tom King has done this thing throughout this series where he's put Batman and Wonder Woman together a bunch of times and sort of defined a relationship for them as works in this story. And so this plays off of those things. It's not the first time we've seen them together. Is this the one like, did she take Superman or Batman to like the mall in space?
That was Superman.
Okay, right. Yeah. But there was other issues where she was with Batman.
Yeah.
And it had all of the stuff that makes, the Greek gods stories work, like the basis of that's the way that Hephaestus is. And like we had a relationship, and
that was a great scene.
They're just gods,
And the first issue was all about Batman being a detective in Olympus, and then at the end of the issue, Zeus hits him with lightning, and so he's knocked out. So now Wonder Woman has to take up basically be Batman, and so we see her in a way we don't normally see her, which is basically
Mhm.
investigating a crime. And that was really great. And I thought I loved sort of punch drunk Bruce
Mhm.
from being zapped, and she's like pouring him water, and she's like, "Bruce, I got to ask you a question." He goes, "I let Dick choose his own outfit. I didn't think he'd go full circus." Like that was a funny Tom King joke.
Yes.
Um, and I just like that he's completely useless because he's been zapped and he's a human, and he's got to recover from this lightning bolt, and so it requires Diana to be a little bit like him. And I thought it was a fun side of her. Guillaume March is terrific, but using
Yep.
him within the confines of the 9-panel grid, which this whole
Mhm.
book is,
Yeah.
you really allows him to focus on the facial expressions. He's not, he usually does
Yeah.
like big, emotive, expressive stuff, but this really confines his work in a great way. And I thought this was a great two-parter.
It really was, and you don't get a lot of two-parters, so it's sort of, just like you take the characters, shove them somewhere else. This is how it used to be done. It was great. I think the one little tiny Guillaume March thing I noticed is that like his Batman head, I was like, this is very heavily influenced by The Dark Knight Returns,
Yeah.
and not in a bad way. But there's a bunch of panels in here. I was like, that is
Oh,
Franken Klaus.
his lower face in the mask is very
Yep.
much, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
like
don't I don't mind it. I just noticed in that the page. All right, so the first one I know is it's 22 when they're talking to Zeus is one of those like that's a Frank Miller. And then the next page, the way
oh,
that
that
it,
especially, yeah,
yeah,
in the car.
it's great. Yeah, no, it's fun.
And ultimately, it's all about Diana's reckoning with the loss of Steve Trevor.
Mhm.
I guess he's hanging out with Alfred somewhere in the hall of people who shouldn't be dead. Um, and it makes sense that she would go to Batman for counsel on her pain.
It's interesting because the rule is you kill your babies, you put your
Right.
heroes through shit. But in the never-ending narrative of superheroes, it doesn't have the same effect. Like you just want to wreck these characters and then
Right.
eventually have to pretend that they're not wrecked. It's just like,
You have to live in the moment of the story because usually the characters always come back. So
Mhm.
even though you know that intellectually, emotionally, to live in the moment, but then and it used to be they would come back, and under the Levitts they always came back, but
Mhm.
now you don't know who's wrecked and who's not wrecked until it's too late and they're wrecked.
Yeah.
But this is great,
Like,
and also it was like, Batman and Wonder Woman had a romantic relationship in the cartoons, but not in the comics. And there's moments here where you're like, he's hanging out in his underwear in her bedroom, but like
mhm,
it's a purely platonic situation, and I just liked their friendship quite a bit in this issue.
mhm. Yeah, I
It
agree.
was it was very good.
It was
All
good.
right, another break. We'll be back in one moment. Sleep,
Sleep
number
number
one.
Sleep Number One by Xander Cannon. That is a name you might recognize. Most of you probably recognize it from Alan Moore, Top 10.
Haven't heard
Xander
in a
Cannon
long time. Long time.
co-wrote it, I think,
Yes,
with Alan Moore,
I believe he
which
did.
is crazy because who the hell was he? You know, um,
It's a
and
name I
he's
haven't
done
heard in a
other
long
books. Like
time.
he did. I don't think he might have a brother, but he did like comic book textbooks and things like this. And I saw Sleep Number One by Xander Cannon, and I thought that's a name. I wrote it
I
with an
haven't
X,
heard in a
not a
long
Z.
time.
Long time.
Long time.
Um, and I was like, I don't know
He was
what it.
always a Z, even back in the Alan Moore days.
No, I got it wrong. I'm saying I got it wrong. I just
Oh,
in my mind, I think it
oh,
was. I wrote an X. In my mind, Xander starts with an X. That's all.
right. That's fine.
Tomax, Zaymont, these kinds of things. Um, it always comes back to that. You see,
Always.
I had no idea what this story was going to be.
Right.
All I know really is that here's what I know. He worked on something a really long time ago that I really liked, but I have no idea what capacity he worked on it in. And I do know that I think they did an extra. There
You
was
mean
there was
after the ABC stuff?
no, like he did top 10 and then he
Yeah.
did the Smacks miniseries, which was
Mhm.
also great in case you stopped there. And then at some point they brought it back in some way with Alan Moore not involved and he wrote it and it wasn't very good.
Right.
Um,
And
but
they did Kaiju Max
oh
for
yeah. I kind of
for a
remember
while.
that. So
Yeah.
it's a name. I'm not really a fan, but I'll check this out. And I was kind of surprised because I didn't know what to expect, but this wasn't what I expected.
Right.
This like cartoony story that there's something going around killing stuff, but there's a small town, and the guy comes back from out of town to play guitar, and they all hang out together like the old days, but there's some sort of mystery going on at the same
All right,
time.
so there's a dude. The main character is a guy who is sort of down and out. He works at a coffee shop. He wakes up. The town's been all fucked up by some creature.
His
His
cat's
cat's
missing.
missing. He's late for work. He works at a coffee shop. His friend, who at first I thought might be a girlfriend, but clearly was not because she wants to sleep with the other dude,
Mm.
uh,
Yeah,
is there. And then the musician is an old friend from high school who's back in town.
who's
It's
got
like
more miles on him than the others.
any small town story, right? There's the
Yeah,
people who stayed, the people who left. One of the other guys from high school is the local cop who's a dick to the main character, but seems to be very friendly with the musician.
yeah,
And so far, that's really all the comic's about. I mean, it's just this hanging out. We don't get a sense
yeah. But there,
of the mystery or the creature. And he says in the essay it'll get very violent, and later. But right now, we're just meeting everyone in town.
and I liked the smallness of it, and I
Yeah.
really liked. So the whole thing is black and white, except there is a current of red, very bright, contrasty red throughout the entire thing. Most notably, the main character's glasses are bright red. Um, And I mean, as an effect, it works really, really well.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, I think this is one of those instances where like digital coloring, I think, makes this red really stand out in a way that maybe like photocopying a painting or what. But
Right.
there's a little bit of red on the characters. The guitar player has a wrist. He has a bike chain around his wrist that's red. It's barely noticeable. And then the weird things that happen, there's all these different things that are highlighted with the red, and some of
Mhm.
it is very normal. There's a check in the writing on it is in red. We don't know why, but it means something. Um,
Or it's just a contrast color. He says in the back
yeah,
he was trying to figure out how to make it look different and decided he would use red as the highlight color. It's all started with the glasses. He said he needed a color for the glasses to make it
yeah.
pop, and he chose red.
Well,
Um,
there's also like, because there's this like hint of violence, like it feels like oppressive. It feels like it's telling us something is going to happen. And obviously, like, there's pets missing, a bunch of shit got torn up. He said it's going to get violent. There's this weird thing with like a vagrant guy who is painting red lines
mhm.
everywhere. Basically, I don't know what it was, but I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't think that I would. I
Oh, I
really
did.
really
I liked it a
small.
lot. It may end up going places I don't like, but
Yeah,
it may get horror-y in a way I don't like. But for right now, I just love this. I mean, he says in
I
the
think
back, this is basically like he lived in a small town. He worked at a coffee shop.
yeah,
Like a lot of this is his lived life, and there's a lot of religion here. There's a big
yeah.
He has a big cross on the wall, actually I just noticed a picture of Jesus, and so
Yeah,
the main character seems fairly religious. He goes to church with everyone in
yeah.
town. So I don't know if that's going to play into it or not, but
I think, does he live in his parents' place, but they're not
that could
there?
be it. That could be
I
why
don't
he's
know.
so religious in
I
the
I
house.
I know that, it just was small in a way that I kind
Yeah,
of
it's nice.
appreciated, and also I think the cartooning and the writing were excellent. Like, the
Yeah,
the characters were portrayed really well. It's great dialogue,
you
and I
got to
loved
know
it.
them all very quickly, and you
Yep,
understood all of them.
yep,
Very, it
a
was
lot of fun.
very elegantly done. Um, we don't read a lot of comics like this anymore. We used to read comics like this all the time,
Mhm.
especially when we first started iFanboy, and especially when we first started doing the show and our video show. I feel like we were always reading these slice of life comics, and that's not what this is. It's going to get violent and horror, but
Right.
for
Makes
just
you feel like that,
for
though.
this moment anyway, it felt like one of those books from 20 years ago, which
Yep.
I certainly I do miss those books. I wanted to talk about Redcoat number 12, where um, so it's interesting because I really liked this story, but I also, I mean, maybe unfoundedly, I'm worried that this is going to start to get away from Jeff, even though he's about as experienced as you could possibly imagine writing comics. There's a lot happening here. He introduces like a time travel society, a warring time travel society, of which the Northerners on one side, and there's another guy on the other side who's trying to help the South win the war. He brings a bunch of guns and things to the South, and
Snickers.
according to the Northerner, the South has won. The money he has is the Confederate States of America money instead of the United States of America. But um, I just worry there's so much going on already in this world, and the timeline involves all the characters, and I just for no good reason other than I'm just worried.
I mean,
that
he did
it's
like
gonna-
he did, you know, this 20 years ago.
Oh, I
And
know.
he was a kid, he didn't know what he was doing then. And this thing, he's just been, I mean, how long has this all been going on? It's still
This is
very
the
well
second volume of
balanced.
Redcoat.
It's very, I know,
No,
but like
no,
his
it's not
whole
the second
universe
volume of
thing
his
is,
books.
yeah, his whole universe has been like 2 or 3 years at this point.
Yeah, I'm
And
enjoying it. And I thought, this is the fun stuff you think about as a kid, like what happens if there were automatic weapons in the Civil War.
Mhm.
And we find that out here. I mean, there's AK-47s and there's pistols and that was fun. I think that part of it, the
Yeah.
historical fantasy bit's fun, where a bunch of soldiers show up to arrest the bad guy, and he turns around with a machine gun and guns him down, and the Northerners got does the John Woo double pistol jump shoot,
Mhm.
and that was fun. I liked this issue. I'm like, what's happening?
Do you think how many of your average Americans do you think would look at the Confederate States of America dollar and go, that's Jeff Davis on there? Because I went,
I
that's
don't
Jeff
think
Davis.
should you brag
Yeah.
about that? It's actually on
No,
the 5, which makes it more ironic because
it's true.
5. Um, yeah. So I thought story wise, like this particular issue, I really liked, but I just
I
like,
also
what's
think
happening here?
there are politics isn't the word, but there are social issues here that have to be handled somewhat deftly. And I thought that it was done pretty well and in the correct comic book format. Meaning, like there's the issues of slavery and how they're dealing with it. And you've got this sort of main character who doesn't care. And then you have a black man from the future or an alternate world, and he's helping a girl out. And I just thought it was the right amount of dealing with it at this time, as opposed to getting too sidetracked by too many things that are very heavy and too much for this comic book to bear. If that
Yeah,
makes
I
sense.
mean they stay focused on the action adventure, even if like
The
any
rest
good
of it
story.
exists and it is there,
Because at
but
one
it
point, the little girl, right? So she's seeing all this stuff,
mhm,
and she's like, "So magic's real?" He's like, "Yeah, and Redcoat's like, "Yeah, I'm a magical person, basically." And she goes, "Well, why
mm,
haven't you used it to help free us?" And
yeah,
that was as hard for him as it was for me to go, "Oh shit."
yeah,
So I think that's the right amount for
yes,
this, and
it's there,
yeah,
but yeah,
I'm really enjoying it. I thought this was great.
sure.
This is a good week of comics. We're not done talking
Brian
about this.
Hitch, man, it's Brian Hitch.
I think I don't know. I hate this the reviewing that tries to get into the head of people you don't know or know the heads of, but it almost seems like when he's really excited about something, the better art comes out.
I can
You know,
I don't know what causes it one way or another, but this work is energized and inspired more than other
right?
stuff I've seen him do.
And I
That's
imagine it's more fun to draw this than to draw
maybe, yeah.
Superman again. You know, as
Yeah.
great as much as we love Superman.
Everybody wants to get their chance to draw Superman and Batman, but maybe 15 years in, you're like, I'm good.
Not
I
because
get it.
about the Civil War.
I get it. Not everybody can be Bagley. Spider-Man? Let's do it.
I'm drawing it right now while you talk to me.
I've drawn it 3 times.
I
Hey,
did 4 issues.
this is a listener-supported endeavor. How old do you think our jokes and references are going to be? Like,
That's an old joke in reference to the old video
yeah.
show. So anyone doesn't know, we once interviewed Mark Bagley at a con, and he refused to stop drawing the issue he was working on at the table he was at. And so I believe it was you, had to talk to him while he was drawing, which was funny.
Yeah. That's true. Which is fascinating. But
He never
also
stops.
alluding to the fact because of that too, like he just drew he's drawn Spider-Man for 30
100
years.
years.
Yeah. And he seems cool with it.
That's
Like
great.
fucking Spider-Man. I don't this is a listener supported endeavor here at iFanboy, and there are several ways that you can help contribute. It is not necessary, it is not mandatory. You can enjoy everything that you are listening to or watching right now, the same way you always could, and have nothing to do with it, and that is absolutely fair. But if you think this is worth it for you, this contributes to your life in some way, then here's what you can know. Patreon.com/iFanboy is Patreon. I figure everybody knows what that is at this point. You can directly support the show. You can become part of a great community. There's both Discord and Facebook. As a member, you can vote on the Patron Pick. You can get a Patron Power live on the show. You can join the monthly Patron Hangout live or later. You can watch it later, or you can join it live, but you're the only ones who have access to it. At $10 or higher, you will get an ad-free version of this show, of all of our shows, all of them, Plus, you get the pick of the week, this show here, a day early. So it comes out on Saturday on Patreon, and you can subscribe to that on a feed just like you would any other podcast, because that's important. If I'm a person like, I don't want to have to like download a thing.
You
or
get a
whatever. No,
feed. You get your own
you get a
special feed.
It's exactly like your own podcasts that you do. So it's just a good benefit. There's an iFanboy after show that for the $10 higher level also on Sundays that comes out. And after we record this show, there are many books that we do not talk about here for various reasons. So we talk about everything that's left over. And let me tell you, this week, doozy. There's a discount if you sign up for the entire year at one time. And you can now send or receive gift memberships. To look into that, that's patreon.com/iFanboy. And then you add /gift to that. And it's happened. I was a doubter, but it's happened. iFanboy.threadless.com is our merch store. We have 22 designs to be put on t-shirts and items and things.
And in 2 months, there'll be another one.
Yeah.
You have it ready to go.
There you go. So there's a couple of new iFanboy 2025 designs and logos. You want to know how long we discussed those logos? It was a torturous process.
Back and forth.
iFanboy.com/support. And I always like the one that no one else likes. iFanboy.com/support. Your direct donations via PayPal are accepted there. Very simple. If that's what you want to do, that's cool. iFanboy.com/Amazon is the general shopping link. It's an affiliate link for Amazon. If you're ordering stuff and you go through that link, that helps us out. Costs you nothing. There's no extra nothing to it. Super easy, and is really a good way to support the show without having to worry about it too much. Bookshop.org is a aggregate for local bookstores, so that if you want to buy books and publications such as that, we will put those on the website where we can, because that is a very important business to support.
Do you have a Civil War book recommendation?
There's so many. Have you ever been like in a library and looked at like the Civil War section and just think, I could never?
Oh yeah, it's
never.
It's a certain man, certain favorite type of story to write or subject to write about. Well, pick one Civil War book. One.
I don't know that this counts, but I would say, what's the Doris Kearns Goodwin book? The
Cabinet of Rivals, or something of Rivals. Confederacy of Dunces.
I was going to say Confederacy of Rivals, but one. I liked that book a whole lot.
Team of Rivals. We
were close. Yeah. What about you? What would you say?
I mean, there's the Shara trilogy, which I think is like the sort of the, if you want the nice overview, not nice, but if you want like the Shara, it was Jeff Shara and his son did the trilogy. One was Gettysburg, which they made into this thing. They were the trilogies, like the sort of the standard for just the general.
Shelby Foote has the 3-part history of the Civil War also, which is reads very well. You did.
Before we go down this rabbit hole, let's move.
Sorry,
on. I asked the question.
It's true.
And let you talk about this book.
So this book, the Epitaphs from the Abyss, number 11. This is their. I can't imagine you get the EC license pretty cheap these days, but Oni has it, and they've been doing these horror anthologies. And I almost never talk about this book on the show, but I've read every issue of it. This actually, I saw that it's like 11 of 12, so I guess it's not going to go on forever. This was just a good one. All 3 stories were great. You had Greg Pak and Dan McDade on one, who are known quantities. Jay Stevens and David Rubin. I don't know those names, but then the last story was Stephanie Phillips and Christopher Mitten. All 3 stories were great and fun and short. And, I love a 7-8 page short story. Like it's an anthology, but you're in and out on all of them. These books are always worth picking up.
What's a 1-line summary of each story?
Well, that's why I got to look at I put the titles on mine.
Pruning lessons
had to do with a woman who delivered flowers, and everybody was a jerk to her, and so she pruned she grew hands in her flower pots, and then she would cut the fingers off of them, and then the people in real life who were jerks would lose their fingers. It's more elegant than that, but I had to go quickly.
That was Greg Pak's story. Ill
Temperance was great. It was like a guy who is a complete drunk, and he gets this note that tells him to go all over town and do these different things, and he doesn't know what it is. And it turns out that he did some awful shit while he was drunk, and he when he sobered up, he wrote a note to himself to take revenge on himself for what happened.
So that was Jay
It
Stevens,
was
and then
so good.
she consorted with devils.
Like old-timey
Stephanie
witch
Phillips.
story. Like a
Like the
woman is
cover?
really smart and wonderful, and
The
they try to
cover?
burn her. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. It's
that'll
good.
teach him. All right, let's move on to the Ultimates number 12. Dennis Camp, Juan Frigeri. Normally we highlight books we like, but Josh has been doing the opposite lately.
Well, that's not the thing. Like, I have been losing the thread with this book, and there's a bit in this story where basically you learn that Doom. Remember in that issue with the Hulk, they all died. Well, you learn in this one that Doom, who is Franklin Richard, or is Reed Richards, I think.
Yeah,
No,
Reed
he's
Richards.
Doom, but he's a different.
He's Reed.
He's just
He's
Reed.
Reed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we're 12 issues in, and anyway, Doom, they'd all died, and Doom resurrected them, but they didn't know that. But they were all having these weird PTSD nightmares about it, and they all sort of come clean. And what's the line? Where is it? At some point, Doom just is like, "This isn't working. We've done all of these things, and they don't mean anything. We've accomplished nothing, and this isn't working." And I was like, "You're talking about your own story."
And here they say
beautiful.
that 6 months. They got 6 months now. 6 months have passed. They've got 6 more months until the door opens to whatever the fuck, and
Yeah.
the Maker comes out. And also, should be noted that this entire issue is being narrated by a spy in the midst of the Ultimates who was spying on them for Nick Fury and Shield. And turns out it's Wasp. It's Wanda, which makes sense. It's a good spy. She's tiny. I don't know that this book is working. I do like issues of it.
Yes.
But a couple of things aren't working for me. One, I think, is the one for Gary art. I decided I don't think is working. I liked it in the beginning, but I think all of his facial expressions are the same. Like,
I can see that. And
almost
his
all
faces. All of his dudes have the same face,
which isn't unusual, but they all just sort of have the same sort of placid look on their faces. Even when they are trying to emote, they kind of have the same kind of expression. So there's not much in the way of acting in the art.
Fair.
They all also look like they're 16 years old, but that's could be a choice. It's just nothing's happening.
Well, they
say it here, but nothing's really happening. There's a lot of talking.
Literally said, and like at the beginning of this, when I started, I was like, I'm 12 in, and I honestly don't know. Like, we've said this about before, like they're working towards the Maker, but I was like, I don't know what they're doing here. Right. I don't. I mean, at times I do, but I forget. And that's not me forgetting because I don't remember things. It's just that I don't think it's very clear. And then to have this character just go like, this isn't working. We haven't accomplished anything. I was like, ooh. I mean, really, like I was like, that is exactly what the problem with the book is. Like the book explained to me what was wrong with the book. And I've never seen that happen before. That was it's
tough. It's funny because I think it was it might have also been last week where someone asked, or maybe the week before, about having the Ultimate Universe take over the Marvel Universe. And I wouldn't want this to be the main version of these characters.
I think what's vexing, like it's distracting about it is that like page to page, moment to moment in the issues, like it's well written. Like these characters are well defined. The dialogue is really strong. Like you sort of believe what they're saying, but at the end of it, nothing's been accomplished. Not in the story, but also for us as readers. Like the stakes are no different now than they were in issue 1.
Yeah.
Not at all. We know exactly as much as we did then. We just met a bunch of different versions of the characters we already know. That's all that's happened. In fact, one thing that did happen is they met with Hulk and they killed them all, but then they erased it in the book.
You don't get a good sense of the world and what's happening around them and why. I mean, we know why things are important, but we don't get a sense of it in the story. And it doesn't really tell us, like, while these guys are spending endless issues talking in their headquarters, what's happening around them? Why is any of this important?
Well, I mean, our thing about the random crisis event book was just like, this is really a lot of great stuff in here. It's too fucking much. And that's what this is. It's halting progress. Like, you've eschewed the basic rule of like, show what happens, don't talk about it, keep things moving. What you do needs to be essential to the plot, and everything else you don't need. You know, those are the basic rules, and it's not happening.
Yeah, I agree. there you go. Let's move on. So those books we wanted to talk about, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, as Josh mentioned earlier, every patron of the show gets a vote to add a book to the rundown. And this week, the winner by several votes, it was a close one for most of the week, was The Thing #1 from Tony Fleece, apparently. Justin Mason, Alex Sinclair, Joe Caramagna. Am I crazy? Did this book already come out? Like,
There was a Thing book.
There was a Thing book like 6 months ago, wasn't there?
It wasn't this though. That one was like kind of wacky. I remember who did it. It was somebody who doesn't normally.
I thought this book came out. Anyway, this was the Patron Pick. So, a couple of things I really liked about this. One, features my favorite. This takes place in the past. This features my favorite version of the Fantastic Four outfits. This is my favorite one, probably because this is one when I was a kid. But I like this one a lot with the white sort of neck thing. It's just a good design. I like it a lot. Also, they make some effort to draw Johnny like the old style with the lines on his body, which I always liked. But what I liked the most about the story was that it was a story about Ben from the neighborhood. So, like, you know, they come back from this really tiring mission. He's exhausted. He just wants to sleep and be left alone. 5 minutes into falling asleep, someone knocks on his door, and it's Herbie the robot with some guy who came to the building looking for him. And he's like, he says he knows you. He's like, don't you remember me? We grew up. It's what's his name? It's Marty from the neighborhood. And he's like, I guess he doesn't like Marty, so he just, you know, doesn't want anything to do with it. But then he says, it's about Shelly. And he's like, Shelly from the neighborhood? She's like, yeah, she's missing, or her niece is missing or something. And he sighs and puts on his coat and hat and goes, because like he's still like, that's one of my favorite things about Ben Grimm is he's always been from the neighborhood, right? He's always been from the Lower East Side. He's Jack Kirby, you know, from Yancey Street. And so what gets him out of bed is that one of the girls from the neighborhood who was always nice to him, her relative is missing, and so he goes to help. I think I liked that bit quite a bit. It was fine.
You were thinking of 2023's Clobberin' Time, written.
No, I was not.
Written and drawn by Steve Scroce.
No, not that one at all. There was I swear there was another book called The Thing #1 like 6 months ago. That's I'm not talking about Clobberin' Time. So
that was a licensed book for IDW based on the John Carpenter film.
Maybe. I like this. I didn't think this was like amazing, but I liked it quite a bit. I think it shows that Tony Fleece has a nice handle on the character and the Marvel universe. And if this is like his call up, you know, from indies to try out, I think this is a good showing. I wasn't amazing, but I thought it was a solid effort.
It was comfortable and familiar, if not overly impressive.
Right. I think that's right.
I would say, you know, so you're like, this is what you're here for. It isn't going to blow you away, but if you're like, I want a Ben Grimm story, you know, is this deserving of its own series? Or is this, or I know, right. I guess that's possible, but you know, the underlying thing is that there's like a supervillain bounty out on Ben Grimm. So every time he went somewhere, I was like, "Ooh, they're going to get him." I thought it was. I want to say like it was fine. It's better than it was fine, but it was still fine.
Yeah, I wasn't like I didn't read it and go, "Oh man, awesome!" I read it. I was like, "That was fun."
Yeah,
it was. I wouldn't have anything negative to say other than I would ask cover artist Nick Bradshaw, what the hell's up with his knee? Why he has a knee pad?
He's getting old. That's a brace.
No, it's just the cover.
No, it's like you get, you know, it's like the orthopedic strips, but they make them flesh color.
This is young Ben. This is taking place in the past.
Listen, if you are made of rock, you put a lot.
It's a lot of strain on your joints.
Yeah, exactly. He's missing little chunks. He's missing chips. I don't like that.
I remember that one. That was from that one Clobberin' Time where it was like gooing out. So I thought Justin Mason did a solid job. I liked the art.
I really like. I don't like this. I don't like Sue's face in this.
That's not a great drawing of Sue's face, but I thought his Ben Grimm was good. I thought the action was good. I thought he did a good job. He did a really good job of the emotion. It's hard to do emotion on Ben Grimm's face without giving him too much of a human face, and they did a good job of it. They used a lot of shadow, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Again, not amazing, but solid.
Yeah.
So, you know, good.
These are all the classic design versions of these characters.
Yeah.
Like when the villain who shows up at the end, like that's central casting version.
Well, this is 80s Marvel.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I would expect the designs to all be out of, which is some might say the classic version, because those basically all the designs from the 60s still carried on through the 80s. Because back then,
A
they
class.
knew to keep the designs.
Yeah.
These are good designs. We don't need to change the costumes every 5 minutes.
Well,
Like
Jack
that
and
was
Stan
the-
were still around, so they had to respect them. And then
So they
second
should
that
talk-
Jack died, they went off the fucking deep end.
They should talk to whoever's doing the Flash right now.
Hmm.
But yeah, I thought this was good. It's a 5-issue miniseries. So it's a little mystery. Who took the girl? And then finds out other people have been taken from the neighborhood. It's not just her.
Hmm.
And so Ben's going to save the day. The next issue, he gets to fight Bullseye, and there's a bullseye knife in his head. Like I like when characters fight or involved with characters who don't normally get involved with. Also, like I don't think I've ever seen the Thing fight Bullseye.
I think of them both as New York City characters, so it seems like
Well, they are, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
right. Nice.
Ben's too busy up there in space doing space stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is fine. I liked it. I don't have a lot more to say about it.
Yeah, I don't either. Ratings?
Ratings.
Ratings.
3.25 out of 5.
I was gonna say 3.5, but I think you liked it more than me, so I have to like revise on that curve.
You can do what you want. I mean, I was thinking about 3.5, but I decided to go 3.
I think it's a 3.5.
I think
I have a higher
off for the
standard.
cover.
I have a higher. You're like you're cool with the 3.5, and I'm like everything should be better than the 3.5. That's the difference.
3.5 is on the other side of good. 2.5 is down the middle.
That's fine.
3.5 is one past middle.
Okay.
3.5 is like a B.
2.6 is one part. 3 is 1/2 past middle.
2.5 is the middle. So if you go to
Right.
3.5, that's one past the middle.
I would like to point out that my little subheader there was not intended to be reference, but you just did a thing that made me think of Spinal Tap when he says it's one louder. You were like, it's one better.
What's one more?
It's one better.
All right. Well, okay. So 2 more questions. One, would you have read this if this wasn't the Patron Pick?
No.
I hadn't planned on it, but
I like Ben Grimm, but I'm not like, a Ben Grimm story. Like, I get enough, especially
Okay.
now. Like, I'm good. I don't,
And finally, are you sticking with it?
Nope.
I don't know. And I know that we're not supposed to say I don't know here, but I don't know. It's going to depend on what the week is like when it comes out again. If it's a light week and I need some stuff, maybe. If it's a heavy week, then maybe not. I just don't know. I liked it, but I didn't love it enough to automatically put it on my list.
I think this is good if this is what you want, and I don't really want it, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Don't want it.
I don't really.
Don't want it.
I don't care what happens. Like I know, like I know where it's gonna end up. It's fine.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for voting. If you voted, if you didn't vote in your Patreon, please do. You get a good amount of time to do it. It's easy. Takes 2 seconds.
Maybe we talk about some other kind of book. There's a voting block, people. This 2-party system.
Well, there was a
only
block,
be
but they
disrupted.
failed this week.
Right.
There's a block who don't want any more number ones, since they've been voting for non-number ones, but they did not win this week.
Yeah.
They lost their power. So there you go. Patreon.com/fanboy. Thanks for being a patron. But if you're a patron at the $5 or higher level, you get a superpower live on the show, like this guy,
Thomas Williams. Has he has the power to instantly remove all hair from any animal.
Oh, instant denuding.
Poof, bald animal, a little cat or like he can do that, and obviously he's going to include humans with that. It's full hair removal
because humans are animals, the most dangerous game of all.
And also I'm going to include like a defeathering. You could work like that.
He can defeather. Oh wow.
Yeah, he's not taking anything like necessary. Like I don't know if fish need scales, but I feel like they need those. So he's not taking the scales off. But
what if it's a dead fish? What if you've caught it and you're going to cook it?
No, that's a different thing.
No, it has to be a live animal.
Yeah, I'm going with that.
And the question,
it'd be weird to go around just like making dead animals bald.
Well, it would be helpful in the fish sense. We wouldn't have to just scale it.
Yes, you've just given him a terrible job.
What can it grow back?
Yes.
Or is it done?
No, he's not. Okay. No, he's not electrolysis. Okay. But he makes.
Does it hurt?
He can make it's gone.
So it's not like it's being ripped out. It's just
you're fully shorn. I guess he could go into like a Brazilian type of business.
I mean, he could. Yeah. So is it targeted? Can he do it in a design?
No.
So it's just all or nothing.
Yep.
So he can't make like a symbol in the
I mean,
hair and
he's giant for swimmers. Like they love it. And
yeah.
cyclists.
My roommate, my sophomore year roommate in college was on the swim team. He was hairless, totally hairless. All right. Thanks for being a patron, Thomas. Hope you enjoy your denuding power. Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can get a power live on the show, $5 higher level. Pick an email.
Ken from the Great White North sent a couple. I picked one of them. Desert Island time. You get one comic collection, one album, one movie, and one book. What are they?
Well, so
and you're on a desert island. Now we have to define collection.
Right. I was going to ask, does that mean a collected edition or a collection?
I was going for a collected edition, like a
okay.
book.
That's easier
Call
than
it a
saying
book.
Someone's collection of comics. So you get a lot of them.
Now, see, this is the desert island thing brings into question. You're not necessarily do your favorite thing. Some might say that, but then you might want to think what's something that has repeat value.
Right. And this is a Gilligan's Island situation where you can like ride a coconut bike and it powers your TV and your
sure
DVR. God, I used to miss watching Gilligan's Island every day. So the comic is The Dark Knight Returns. Album. It feels like a cheat to say like the Beatles one album that has like 30 number one songs because
if it was up to me, I'm not gonna say no, but if it was up to me, I'd be like no greatest hits.
No greatest hits is fine. I mean, it's a fine rule.
But I don't know that that's fair. Like if you were like, I want a smattering of the Beatles, you're saying one.
Well, one has all their number one hits, which is like
I was thinking because in the old days there was red and blue, so the blue was earlier and the red was later, or vice versa. I forget. But one,
the one that came out when we were in college, or whatever.
Okay,
yeah.
Listen, I wasn't gonna buy it. I had the come on.
And then one movie's tough. I feel like I can watch Star Wars all the time and be fine with it. But
I worry. See, my instinct would be something that like has can I take the entire series of The Wire with me instead of a movie?
No, like one movie.
I know.
Easy.
I know.
It's just got to be Star Wars because I've already seen it 1,000 times and I still enjoy watching it. So if I watch it 1,000 more times, I probably still will enjoy watching it. So
let me just ask you this, okay? You're stuck on a desert island, right?
Uh-huh.
Maybe something a little more sexy, if you know what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
Carrie Fisher wasn't wearing a bra.
I don't know if that's enough anymore.
By the way, I don't like this, but I noticed the other day on TV that in the TV listings, it was called Star Wars: A New Hope. They were having a marathon, and it was like Star Wars: A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And I was like, no.
From a marketing standpoint, it is.
I call it sure, but that's not. It just shouldn't be called that. Anyway,
you should call it Episode 4. Now, that was not the official title, but it was in the movies. So there's
Dark Knight Returns, Beatles 1, Star Wars, and this is difficult.
The book is very difficult. Right away, you're hit with the question: fiction or nonfiction?
That is what I was thinking. I'm thinking. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Cryptonomicon only because there's so much in it to figure out, and it could sustain multiple readings. But I haven't read it in a long time, so I could be wrong.
No, it's good. No, you'd be okay. The thing is between that and Seven Eves. They both work.
Seven Eves, there isn't as much to contemplate with Seven Eves. It's pretty straightforward.
Fair. But
whereas Cryptonomicon's like, what does this do? How did he do this? And there's a lot of questions he doesn't answer in that book.
Okay.
That's my answers. Those are my answers.
Right. Desert Island time. The comic collection, I'm gonna go with Watchmen.
Yeah.
And I know that's like, but I don't know if you've read it 10 times, you're gonna get something like it's.
That's why I picked Dark Knight, because they all have a lot of layers to them.
Yeah. The album is very difficult for me. I could tell you, I'm gonna go with my favorite album then.
Okay.
And like you said, the Beatles, and that should be an obvious thing, but I'm gonna go with OK Computer by Radiohead.
So you
No,
wanna feel
no,
sad
I'm
you wanna
sorry.
feel
No,
sad on the right on the
no,
on
no,
the
no,
phone.
no. Listen, that's a big conversation that we're not gonna have. I didn't mean to say OK Computer, though, is what I was thinking. It's actually In Rainbows. In Rainbows by Radiohead is my favorite album of all time, and it makes me happy every time I listen to it because while it is sad, it fucking grooves. It's great. In Rainbows,
Okay.
there is a second volume that sometimes comes with it. You get the whole thing, but I don't need, not that. It'd be nice to have, but I don't
You
need
can
it.
that's technically you could technically have the second volume.
The
That's fair.
movie's very difficult.
Mhm.
Like, I haven't even settled on anything. I don't wanna like, I can tell you my favorite movie is Jaws,
Yeah.
but it's a very simple movie, and it goes very fast.
I mean, it's rewatchable as
It
hell.
is rewatchable, but I'm looking for something to be intellectually stimulating and maybe have some boobs. Um, I'm gonna go with okay, so I told you my favorite movie.
Oppenheimer
Part
then?
part of me wants to say Interstellar
Oh.
because
Are there boobs in Interstellar?
no, there's not. That was kind of a flippant thing, but
Yeah.
every time I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. There's so many things to think about and like it's a sensory experience with the
Sure.
music. I'm gonna assume I have surround sound and a big enough TV to appreciate the
Well,
picture.
as long as you pedal hard enough,
Yeah.
we'll make it all work.
Uh, it's not like the greatest movie of all time. I mean, like I can maybe go with
Is
like
it your favorite Nolan movie?
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, interesting.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
feel like there's stuff that I'm missing in terms of movies, but it's in my top 10. I can feel like, "Ah, fuck it, I'll take Tombstone."
Goodfellas? Tombstone would be a great one.
Yeah, I watched that recently, it's amazing. I'm still gonna go with Interstellar.
Okay.
It's got time travel and relativity and science and the weird idea that love is the whatever. I'm going with that. Whatever. There it
One
is.
book?
One book.
One book.
Taking a single volume of The Lord of the Rings
Oh. Which volume?
with hopefully with no, all like I have
Oh.
I have
I have
one
that too.
volume that
I
contains
have
all the
one
books
volume of it.
plus
Yes,
an
I have that.
appendix. That seems to be, other than the Bible, the most rereadable book. And I thought about the Bible for a second. I was like, well, let's sit down.
There's
Let's
a
get to
lot of
know this
stories in
thing.
there. Yeah.
It's spawned a lot of stuff. Maybe I should get to know it. But I think I'm gonna go with Lord of the Rings.
These are all fine choices.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's great. All right, thanks. Are we doing another one? Or you want to do? Let's do another one. That's
Let's do
shorter.
another one. James T. Saniella. I'm pronouncing it like that. Could
It's
be
James T,
Sagnella. That
not
doesn't
James
seem
S.
right.
James T.
James T.
It's wrong on
Saniella.
here, but it's James T.
Okay. I have two questions, and I've been thinking about for the last 24 hours. It's okay. Try harder.
Yeah.
One, I'm going to read both questions.
Yep.
Then you can answer the first one. One,
Okay.
what is your best memory of comic book collecting reading during your high school, college years? Two, who in your family was most receptive to your hobby growing up?
What is your best memory of comic collecting reading during your high school, college years? That's a tough one.
I didn't read in high school, so college years would be my only possibility.
It's tough because there was a lot of great stuff, especially as things pulled out of the 90s hole in college. We had JLA and we had, Powers, and we had good Batman stuff with Rucka and Brubaker. That was 2000.
Yeah, that's
I mean, I have lots of good memories.
well, it says collecting / reading memories,
Okay.
and to
So
me,
going to the store with all of us, our friends in college,
I mean, yeah.
those are good memories.
I mean, like I have
That's collecting.
I have a very distinct memory of like getting like I don't know if you were in the room or Jared was there and he was your proxy, but you guys were feeding me the Grant Morrison Justice League books
Mm-hmm.
and Thunderbolts. That was Thunderbolts time, right? One of
The
you
first,
gave me Thunderbolts in
I don't
college,
think it was me. It must have been Jared,
right?
because I
And
don't think I read that originally.
that hooked me like a son of a bitch.
Thunderbolts #1 was 1997. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Thunderbolts
So
because
one of your roommates did that.
yeah, and the thing is this.
97, you were in LA.
Yeah, that
You were
makes
living with
sense.
them, so that
Yeah.
would have been it. That would have
So
been
it's
it.
all,
Yeah.
but it's all tied in because that stuff is all tied into everything that we do right now, which is, there's
Sure.
important things in my life. So those are like cornerstone moments. There's that. There was going to Ithacon and meeting Walt Simonson for the first time and Ron crashing his car and he couldn't go. Um, you know, us standing on a corner, leaving the comic shop, and Ron is wearing a Flash shirt. And the first time he goes, I can't run, I'm fat. And I've never laughed so hard in my life because what's weird about college is when you meet interesting people, because in the hometown they weren't so interesting. And I was like, I've never known anybody call themselves fat. Like it just wasn't a thing that people did when they were boring, but it was a funny joke.
I mean, we had a lot of great college members. I'm trying to think of high school. So I guess, I mean, one of my indelible high school memories I'm collecting is the day of the death of Superman and going to the comic store and having to navigate that whole scenario where I'm pretty sure they were already marking it up that day, which they weren't supposed to do by agreement. But I mean, I remember buying, because back in the 90s, at that point in the 90s, you still had newsstand copies because comics were still sold on newsstands. So there was a different cover for newsstands. And stores also ordered them because they could sell another copy. It was the 90s, right? So I remember buying a newsstand copy and then paying too much for the black wrapped issue, the newsstand, so I could read it. Black wrapped, so I could obviously keep it and finance my retirement.
Yeah, which is going great, right?
Yeah. But I distinctly remember being in a store on Austin Street in Queens. I don't remember the name of the store, but
when did you move to Queens?
In sophomore year of high school. So I was lucky there was a store like
you were
4 blocks from my place in Queens. And there was another one there was 2 on Austin Street. This was the main shopping street in Forest Hills. There were two comic stores. These were the 90s, so they were everywhere.
Not
but that's
for long.
No. That store didn't last my time living in Queens. But right next to it was a hobby store. Where you could buy models. Anyway, it was right around the corner from my house. But being there, I remember being there. I can picture it and the sort of frenzy, the line at the door. But I was a regular. I had like the club card. They had like a club card thing. So I was able to get in and get my copy. But I definitely remember that. That was a good memory. But everything in college was fun. Everything about it. Us dressing up like superheroes for the TV show that we hosted.
This isn't what we asked, but I'm going to give you one because it's actually very formative. When I was 11, it was my same thing. I had it downtown in Brunswick, Maine, and there was a little comic shop sort of right off the main street in the back. And I stopped by there one day, and it was like around Halloween. I think I was in a Halloween costume because it was like a Halloween parade. I was 11. That's how old my younger son is now. And I just went in there and sort of poked around, and I maybe bought a thing or two or thought about it, and then went back later and bought it because like I could ride my bike around and go wherever I wanted, so I could go back there at any point.
Right.
Anyway, I ended up going there a bunch of times. They set me up with a folder at some point, and then at some point I went there on a weekend morning, like before they were officially opened, and they let me in to come in and hang out.
That's
and
awesome.
that, I mean, I remember that I felt like felt like an adult, like I respected, like I was part of a thing, like, and they didn't have to do that. And they weren't creepy weirdos or anything. They weren't like, it's funny because there's the comic book man, stereotype, whatever. And it's like, I haven't, that wasn't my experience. It was and it was in Queens. There's a comic shop in Queens that I like just from listening to talk, I wouldn't go to anymore. But that is like the most formative moment in comics for me.
Continental Comics was the name of the comic store. I just Googled it. That was the
Downey's Comics was the name of my shop, but it's gone.
In junior high school, when I had just started, so I started going weekly to the store in junior high school. I remember it was around the time of Flash 50 because that was the impetus to start going every week. Me and my buddy shared a pull list at Westside Comics, and on 87th Street, and I'm sorry, 86th Street. He lived on 87th Street. But I was very excited to be going weekly, and then I remember one day, probably when I was 12, I got really, really sick, and I was home from school on New Comic Day. And unbeknownst to my parents who were at work, I walked to 86th Street from 81st Street, which sounds like not that long, but there was two avenue blocks in there too, with like 100-degree fever, and I don't remember going. I just remember suddenly I had comics. Like I think I blacked out the walk and the shopping, and then I just remember being back with comics, and they were like, "How did you get comics?" I was like, "I don't know. It was not smart." Anyway, let's do a second question. Who in
Second
your
question.
family was the most receptive to? I got it. Who's your family most receptive to your hobby growing up? They all were. I mean, no one was not receptive to it.
It's so funny because like I don't have a big family, so it's like it was my mom and like like here's the thing. There wasn't anybody who was receptive to it. I was an independent kid. I went to the comic shop. I had a paper route to pay for my comics. Maybe they didn't have to drive me. Maybe my grandma, but she was receptive to anything I did, and she was the greatest
But
woman who ever walked the earth.
nobody like said you shouldn't be reading comics or anything. Like
Ever.
that wasn't a thing. That's
No.
everyone was reading them back then. Like that's what kids did. They read comics.
Yeah.
It was a
And I
normal
was a
thing.
kid.
It was a normal thing to do. Everyone would read it.
And
It's a very different world now than then. And you just were a kid. Kids read comics. That's what they were available everywhere. They were in newsstands. They were in supermarkets. They were in not liquor stores, but like the 7-Eleven, like everywhere you could go, there were comics and kids read them, and so it was normal. Everyone I knew growing up read comics.
Like I didn't even think like I need to get somebody to pay for these. Like I was like, all right, I got a
They were
job.
cheap. Yeah,
They were, but I spent a lot on comics. Like I had a pull list.
no, yeah, but like it wasn't like now you had to scrounge up
Right.
$5 for a comic. It was
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I did scrounging. I mean,
oh yeah, I scrounged for coins to buy Who's Who. I literally went around the apartment looking under couch cushions, and like I scrounged together $2, went back to the store, bought another issue. Like it was.
Kids can't do that now.
No, but I mean, everyone. It was fine. It was normal. My parents were into it. Every once in a while, my dad would take me to the store and buy me like a back issue, not an expensive one, but like a $5 back issue, whatever.
It's kind of an invalid question for us, I think.
Yeah, growing up in the '80s was different. It was normal, at least for literally everyone.
I mean, I'm sure it wasn't for everybody, but for like at the two of us, like there was no. It was like, hey,
it wasn't even weird in school. Like
right.
Everyone I knew was reading comics.
For me, I don't even know because I didn't really talk. Like I don't know. At that point, like I had friends or whatever, but comics was a solo thing for me. I don't think I kept it a secret or whatever, but like it was just me.
What I mean is cultural. Like if you were reading comics in the cafeteria at lunch, like it wasn't a weird thing because other people were doing it too. It was just like comics were more in the.
It might not have been that in my town.
Well, thanks for writing in, James and Ken. We want to hear from you if you have questions about comics or comic culture, or comic movies, or anything about comics. The email is contact@ifanboy.com. You can also write into our Mediasplode for those questions. Put Mediasplode in the subject line. Thank you very much. Quick plugs. A few weeks ago, some time ago, we had our special edition review of Thunderbolts ***. That was Ryan Haupt and Paul Montgomery and I talking about that film. In June, which is almost upon us, we'll have our Superman show. In July, we'll have our Fantastic Four show. And those are all the shows we'll be doing. And then last week, Josh had his very explosive talk with Aubrey Sitterson. Great response to it. A lot of comments on it.
Yep.
A lot of talk about it in the Discord. People really enjoyed it. So there you go. Check that out in the feed if you haven't listened to it yet. It's explosive. You guys bickered.
Sort of. In a friendly way. As I said, we argued, but in the right way.
Right.
In the way that you're supposed to argue.
This coming week, we have Mediasplode. We're recording it soon. Well, by the time you hear this, it'll be recorded, but it's coming out this coming week on Thursday. We're talking about Steven Spielberg's later career. That's what we're talking about. So check that out on. Well, we haven't recorded it yet. Hopefully we did it. If that didn't end up happening, I'll have to cut this part out. So check that out in the feed.
It'll be too late.
Right after this
we'll
show.
Have seen everything. You can find our live. How long is that going to live for? Now we're just stuck with like all of these around 2000 references that we just say, and we'll always say them.
It's embedded in my brain.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
It's true. My language has been entirely informed by you and Ron and the things that we collectively found funny.
Mm-hmm.
Some other kind of underpants that I've never seen before.
Late. I saw everything.
You can find our library of many programs, podcasts, shows, video shows about comics and other things over at ifanboy.com, wherever podcasts are sold. We mentioned that Talksplode. That's number 117, 116. I think it's 17. Nope, 116. That's 116 in the series. So that means there's
Wow.
115 other ones.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of those there. I did most of them, but Ron did a bunch of them in the beginning. Some are double.
We did. Yeah, some of the groups. I think me and Ron interviewed Paul Cornell. I think. Yeah, but you took over pretty quickly. Did most of them.
You can never miss a show and find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out by following us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and Threads, at iFanboy.com on Blue Sky, and Connor and I are CS Kilpatrick and Jay Flanagan on Instagram. That's all those things.
Please consider leaving writing a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. If it's on Pocket Cast, you need to be subscribed. You need to have downloaded a few episodes before you can do so, but please consider it. If you can't support the show in any other way, that's the best way to do it. We appreciate it. It's how people find the show. It helps the algorithm and all that stuff. Including with that is please subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy. That's where you can watch the video version of this show, our special edition shows, minus the Talksplode. All those will be there. You also find an archive of our old video shows that we did in 2007 to 2012, the ones we referenced earlier. And how are we on the push to 5,000? I believe we're like single digits away. If I can only find where that stupid button is. It's like less than 5 away. So let's get on it. Let's do it. If you haven't subscribed yet, and hit the button, whatever the button does, do that too. We appreciate that. Finally, join us in the after show, the iFanboy after show, exclusively on Patreon. We'll share our thoughts on all the books that we read this week that didn't make the rundown. There's like 20 books on this week's list. It's a lot. It's a lot of books. That's at patreon.com/iFanboy for everyone in the $10 a month tier and up. Those shows, they run around 20 minutes. 20, on the high end 30, on the low end 15. But it's a good chunk. It's a good meaty show. So check it out there. And that's it for this week. I'm Connor.
I'm Josh. I have 2 sets of headphones on.
Okay.